Well, we have one good half and we have one bad half. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with somewhat of a newer semi-rant. And this semi-rant is going to be for a film that, the reason it's a semi-rant because I like one half of the film, and there is a half I really hate. Yeah, it's going to be for a live-action and animated film. And this is a film set within the human body. Yeah, it's called a movie called that nobody remembers, or everybody's forgotten about, called Osmosis Jones. Yeah, pretty much the Farrelly Brothers' only really animated, somewhat animated film. Although they didn't direct the animated scenes, they directed the part I hate about the film. So let me get things first. For my opinions on the Farrelly Brothers, I kind of hate most of their stuff. However, is there a movie they did that's good? Yeah, they did like one good movie, and it's called Dumb and Dumber. That's the only movie I ever liked from those guys. I just hate most of their stuff. Their humor is not funny. I think they're bad comedy directors, and I have not even seen The Green Book yet. It's because I'm not a fan of them. I'm just done with their comedy shenanigans, and if you're wondering, I've seen, but there's something about Mary. Haven't you watched that? Yeah, and it's one of the movies I like that everyone hates. Okay, I just cannot get through the beginning scene of There's Something About Mary because it's way too disgusting. Because the certain joke in the beginning of the movie, that movie is just borderline disgusting. I can't even say it because without even trying to vomit. I'm sorry. I respect people who like There's Something About Mary, but I'm one of the few people that hates that movie, actually. I view that movie as the movie that kind of killed comedy, actually. It's the reason we have so many shock factor comedies to this day, and it's all because of that movie being so successful. That movie is so overrated. So, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I absolutely really hated There's Something About Mary. The only movie I liked from those guys is Dumb and Dumber, and that's about it. Ever since then, almost all their con movies are terrible. And with this movie, well, there is a certain bit I like about it because it's not the half they directed. But anyway, enough about that. Let's just get on with the plot. So the plot of this, well, Frank DeTora, played by Bill Murray, is a slobby zookeeper and widowed father to his daughter, Shane. He catches a cold right after he swallows a germ-ridden egg. That's not a shock. And, it's a germ-ridden egg in the beginning of the movie that a monkey takes from him because he works at the zoo. I mean, no, not a monkey. A chimpanzee takes from him, puts in its mouth. He wrestles the chimpanzee for it. The egg falls out of the chimpanzee's mouth, and of course, he eats it right away. Anyway, because 10-second rule, you pick it up the ground, you eat it. You even zoom in on his mouth, and you can already tell what kind of bad movie this is going to be. The inside of his body is known as the City of Frank, an unlikely hero of a white blood cell named Osmosis Jones, works as a member of Immunity Cell. Now, I will admit, a movie within the human body is not that bad a bad concept, actually. It's actually kind of a genius concept for an animated film. But with that egg comes a mortal danger. Osmosis discovers that Frank has really contracted the villainous and black-hearted deadly virus known as Thraxplay, voiced by Lawrence Fishburne, who arrives and is plotting to ultimately overheat his body, killing him from the inside out. Thrax is motivated by trying to become the nastiest new virus and intending to kill each new victim faster than the previous ones. His grandiose plan for Frank is death in 48 hours, breaking previous medical records. Meanwhile, the cold pill that Frank took, Drix, arrives in the body and covers his throat with ice to cover the irritation. Drix Osmosis becomes his newest partner. Now it's all up to both of them to get along with each other and put an end to Thrax's plans before Frank dies and Shane becomes an orphan. So, Osmosis Jones ran through a pretty shitty production. The animated sequences, directed by Tom Seal and Pierre Krum, went into production as planned, even being completed ahead of schedule, but acquiring both the director and a star actor for the live-action sequences took a considerable amount of time, until Bill Murray was cast as the main character of Frank, and Peter Bobby Farley stepped in to direct the live-action sequences. As part of their contract, the Farrelly brothers are credited as the primary directors of the film, although they did not supervise the animated portions of the film, thank God. Will Smith was even interested in voicing Osmosis Jones, but in the end his schedule would not permit it. Principal photography in the live-action scenes took place from April 2nd to June 19th, 2000 in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And Osmosis Jones was even going to be rated PG-13 by the MPA for crude language and bodily humor in 2000, but Warner Bros. Edited the film to make it family-friendly for kids. And in 2000 when it was released, the film was re-rated PG on appeal for bodily humor, and then premiered on August 7, 2001, and then released 3 days later into theaters. It received mixed reviews from critics. They liked the animation, story, and voice acting, but they criticized the live-action portions and overuse of gross-out humor. It even miserably bombed at the box office, grossing a lousy $14 million worldwide on a $70 million budget. But despite this, it did better on DVD sales, so because of the DVD sales, we got an animated series called Ozzy and Drix, which would air from 2002 to 2004, and I saw a lot of ads for it as a kid. Now, my reaction. Well, like I said, this is a semi-rant, because there's one half of the movie I like, and another half I hate. And I think you can guess which half of that I hate. Like, the film's an odd beast. The story for the animated sequences, for the most part, works really well, but the live-action sequences unfortunately push the story forward, undermine the animation's reluctance to purity for the film's A plot. Bill Murray is not the quirky charmer you see in Ghostbusters, or films like even Groundhog Day. He plays this really slobby zookeeper whose sense of hygiene would even make Lax germaphobe shriek in terror. And Bill Murray's immunity system is voiced by Chris Rock, a white blood cell cop that's all about the one-liners and proving he's not just a laughingstock joke. And pretty much, here's my beginning thoughts. The live-action scenes, aka the ones directed by the Farrelly brothers, all suck. This guy named, the guy named Frank is this single father taking care of his daughter, and it's just this unlikable slob and father figure this whole entire movie. It's so sad for me saying that, because I really love Bill Murray. He's a phenomenal actor, and man, I just feel bad for the material he got given in this. I feel bad he had to play a character like this, because he's one of the best actors of all time. Man, this was kind of during a time when Bill Murray was in kind of a bit of a slump. A lot of the movies he made around this era weren't really that successful. Well, there were a few rare ones, like most of the Wes Anderson stuff. Most of the Wes Anderson movies he played in were pretty well praised. They didn't make much money, but they did get critical praise, and his cameo in Zombieland was pretty well liked, but this was kind of also around the time he was starring in bad movies like Garfield, which even he hated. And before you go asking me, he hated Garfield. Yeah, I know he hated Garfield, guys. It's even mentioned in Zombieland that one of his biggest regrets is Garfield, maybe. But I just really hate his character in this movie. How are we supposed to sympathize with this lazy and egotistical doof who acts gross and disgusting the whole entire movie? He eats a chimpanzee-infected egg, stupidly, learns nothing from getting that sore throat, and is continuing his lazy habits. There's even a scene where he puts his foot on a restaurant table and his toenail looks disgusting. There's even a scene with a zit that in close-up even that's about to burst. Ugh. I never felt sorry for 1 minute, mixed that with gross-out humor, which wasn't even helped the slice by Bill Murray, who was usually really funny, like I said, one of the best actors of all time. During his near-death scene at the end, we're supposed to be crying, we're supposed to be heartbroken for this guy, but this guy's a snobby, gross prick the entire movie that just eats not-organic food, ignores his daughter warnings of eating a hard-boiled egg that touched a chimpanzee's freaking mouth, and fell on its dirty cage floor, and is still dirty when he eats it. What? How could anyone be that stupid to eat a monkey that was... No, eat an egg that was in a chimpanzee's freaking mouth? Even I wouldn't do that. The zoo he's working at. It's another problem I have with the movie. Another problem I have with the movie too. This movie has way too many gross out and inappropriate moments in a film that's meant to be aimed at children that all involve Bill Murray's character. Like, then again, this was directed by the Farrelly Brothers. Yeah, great, get the Farrelly Brothers to direct this. That's a great idea, knowing all the very G-rated, kid-appropriate movies they've all made. Like, hey, they made movies like Dumb and Dumber, Me, Myself, and Irene, There's Something About Mary. Around this time, they were all rated G. They look perfectly kid-friendly movies, so they're great ideas to direct a film for kids. But back to the gross out moments, like, for example, there's more gross out moments involving Murray's character, like in the scene he eats this foul oyster and then vomits on Molly Shannon's character after Ozzy apparently tried to eject the oysters from his stomach in a backstory scene, and then in one scene his character has a zit that's showing close-up several times ready to burst, and then when Ozzy and Drix pop it to hopefully kill the villain Thrax, it bursts onto Molly Shannon's character's lip. And we see it burst. We see the pus even burst too. So basically, the only reason Molly Shannon's in this movie is just to be a butt monkey punching bag victim of Murray's gross out scenes. Like, that's pretty much all she's in this movie for, is to be a butt monkey. Bill Murray even just looks awful as he gets sicker and sicker, or Frank, his character's name is. Like, I have to ask if we're even supposed to laugh at his misfortunes. Like, they're not funny. Like, they're just gross. It's not the gross out humor that the Farrelly Brothers are known for. It isn't even funny at all. Okay, but now that I've gotten through the rant stuff, let's get on with the actually good stuff I like. The animated segments. The animated segments were actually awesome. The world inside Frank's was very impressive by how it was crafted, how it functions by having a whole community run by a mayor that's responsible for Murray's character's horrible state of health, who was voiced by William Shatner, who's also one of my annoying problems with this movie, and a police force of white blood cells, and a lot of real-life city stuff showcased a lot of creative effort that was put into it. And our main protagonist of the movie, Osmosis Jones, who is that kind of cop who does things his own way, and the others at the police station do not approve of his ways, but he is later assigned to a new case with a partner to keep him on track. It's a cold pill named Drix, and it follows all the buddy cop movie cliches with nothing new added, but the world they must explore and the colorful characters they meet make it entertaining albeit predictable. And speaking of the colorful cast of characters, the most interesting and memorable of them all has to be the villain Thrax, who is very menacing and merciless and has a death count very high for a PG-rated movie. He's one of the best things I like about this movie, actually. Like, in fact, even a lot of people say Thrax is one of their favorite parts of the movie. Even people who don't even like this movie consider Thrax one of the best parts. Especially with a good voice performance from Lawrence Fishburne. Even that's what I kind of would have preferred for it that way. Like, I would have tolerated the Murray scenes had the whole movie been animated. I would have rather this entire movie were animated than not live action. Like, the gross out scenes, had they been animated, would have been less disgusting to get through and horrendous. Like, this movie doesn't even know if it's trying to even be for kids or adults. Like, they should have just stuck with the PG-13 rating, because this clearly does not look like a movie for kids. Like, I'm surprised this is even a film aimed for kids. Like, this movie feels way too adult. This film definitely should have been stuck with the PG-13 rating, because even this movie's still PG-13, with all the more inappropriate stuff edited out. But without being boring, I found that Chris Rock and David Hyde Pierce do their usual shtick, with Rock being hip and a loudmouth, and Hyde Pierce doing his quirky and eccentric British gentleman voice, but Fishburne really surprised me. He could have easily just have put on his Morpheus voice, but he really didn't for this one. And I'll give him more credit for that. But yeah, despite the great animated stuff, the live-action segments and the movie's biggest drawbacks are the unlikable main character played by a phenomenal actor even, and lowbrow humor as you would expect from the Farrelly Brothers, and frankly, the animated segments are the best scenes, but the transactions between the two parts don't always work. I would have, once again, I would have preferred if it were just an animated buddy cop film about Rock and Pierce's characters as normal animated human beings, having to kind of take down Lorspitz for its villain character, creating this doomsday threat on their town. Would have preferred that too. But if they wanted to be an animated film about the human body, they honestly should have made the whole movie animated. And I probably would have liked it a little more. Because this movie had some good potential. This was a nice concept about the human body. Like, What happens if we don't take care of ourselves? Like, this actually had a pretty nice concept. But no, instead, he had to put directors that were known for making movies that are not appropriate for kids be in charge of the real-world stuff. Why would you have these two? Like, in the end, this is what you get when you put the Farrelly brothers, director of adult-aimed and R-rated comedies that are not even for children, and lots more that are not even for children, much like the other three I already mentioned. I mean, yeah, they did direct The Three Stooges in 2012, but that was years after this. That was a lot of years later. And even The Three Stooges felt pretty adult. Like, this movie proves the Farrelly brothers, like, should not direct children's animated movies, or children's movies in general, because they can't even seem to keep their adult antics out of them with this film. Like, once again, the animated stuff, the best part of the movie, but it gets ruined by the live-action gross-out bullshit we have to endure just to get back to the good stuff. Like, I'm surprised people have not compared us to... Some people even compare us to Inside Out, which was a better movie than this. Inside Out was entirely animated, didn't have gross-out humor, was made by a studio that actually does good at directing kids' films, and even had a likable human character that the whole film's kind of set within the body of, or the brain of. Like, the human character in that movie, all the human characters in Inside Out were actually likable. Here. But, whatever, I can't just... I don't know what else to say. But once again, Inside Out was a better movie with this concept about the inside of the human body. That movie did this concept way better. So, yeah. I know people like this movie, but every time I try to watch it, I try to enjoy the animated stuff, but the live-action movie scenes keep killing this entire movie for me. And technically, all that stuff just ruins any attempt to enjoy this film for me, because I have to get through so many gross-out scenes that aren't even appropriate for a film for children. So yeah, in the end, I'm done ranting on this. I recommend only the animation scenes when watching this film. You can just skip the live-action scenes, and you can just pretend the whole... Like, thankfully, the series Ozzy and Drix is entirely animated, but it kind of retcons the whole ending of this movie, because in the end, Frank does decide to eat healthier, but apparently in the TV series, they were just like, nope, he's back to eating unhealthy again. But then again, apparently the series is supposed to be set in a different continuum where Thrax never happened, but Drix still entered the body. Thrax just didn't happen. Or most of the movie never happened, but Drix still entered the body. So, at least there's that. Kind of. But anyway, that's it for my semi-rant of Osmosis Jones. If we're wondering how I'm going to rank Osmosis Jones, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see a good half of animation scenes to avoid any bad parts, then just watch those scenes and skip the live-action segments, because the animation is all you need to see. And if you are wondering how I'm going to rank Osmosis Jones, I'm going to give Osmosis Jones a 5.5 out of 10. There we go. That's it for my semi-rant. And for those of you who do like the movie, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to be mad at anybody who likes this movie. I just personally don't like it. Once again, I like the animation stuff, but the live-action stuff just prevents me from even being able to enjoy this. But yeah, had the movie been entirely animated, it actually would have been pretty good. I gotta say, they actually had potential to make a good movie here. But since they had to make the whole half in live action, it kind of ruined it. But I can understand what they were trying to go for. It's how they executed it that ruined it. Until then, that'll be it for this semi-rant. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.